All right, so a couple things to discuss in today's video. Number one on the docket is the podcast, and I've been getting a lot of messages and comments asking me about the podcast specifically, and so I just have to first come out and say I'm very sorry that I wasn't actually ready to start doing the podcast when I made that video. I was just on this massive hype train in my mind with all these different people that I can get on the podcast and all this different. I let my brain kind of overload, my workload, and I got really overwhelmed. I was running into countless technical difficulties, and basically just through a lot of this other stressful things going on in my life, I had to put a pin on the podcast, or put a pin in the podcast, and work on other things and kind of let certain aspects of that iron themselves out. So we're definitely closer to having the podcast be a normal thing, but we're still nowhere near it being ready. So keep that in mind, bear with me on that. I do want to put out the best quality podcast that I can, and I don't want to put something out that I don't feel comfortable with in terms of my standards that I set for my videos, or for specific the podcast. I really want it to be good. I want to do a service to the community that's been so good to me, and I've connected with so well. I want to be able to capture all these things that I'm talking about in the podcast and deliver it to you in the highest quality possible. So please, like I said, bear with me on that podcast. I will eventually get it up and running, and we will have that dope guest I'm talking about for the first episode. Everything will be sweet. So moving on, the second thing I've been getting a lot of messages about is the Artuian, how to deal with the Artuian. People commenting and messaging me saying that they can't use it like I use it, and they're confused. So I'm going to go ahead and iron some details on that out towards the end of the video. But right now I want to go ahead and mention, I can't remember their name off the top of my head, but I've seen them comment on my channel before, but they had just recently left a comment asking about a specific setup in a video, very, very niche setup. And they happened to be paying attention during that part in the video, and so they called out that part. And what they're referring to is it was a Bloody Bandit's knife riposte, so let me bring it back. So it was a Dory's Gnawing, right? Cast Dory's Gnawing. They're in hit stun. I predict the swing out of hit stun. I parry them and then riposte them with the Bleed Bandit knife, trying to get a bloody critical. Right, I wanted to do the critical attack, get the crit damage, but also inflict the status at the same time. So I called it the Bloody BS, or the Bloody Riposte. And then on the flip side of that coin, you also have Frostbite, and getting Frostbite when you do a critical, I called it the Cold Shoulder BS, right? Or just the Cold Shoulder. You gave him the Cold Shoulder and you backstab him while inflicting the Frostbite status as well. So these two builds, I believe that in addition to the Bloody Bandit knife and Dory's Gnawing, I also used the Splintering bolts with a crossbow to inflict a little bit of bleed. So what I would like, or the reason why I'm bringing these up, I should say, is I would like to see some members of the community that watch these videos, or if they don't watch the video, you could tell them about this as well. I just want to see people get clips doing these status criticals, right? Whether they're the Bloody BS, or whether it's a Frostbite BS, whatever you want to call it, however you want to do it, I want to see them, because I don't really have that much time to play these days, and I figured if I spread this idea through the community, definitely people would be trying to do it, doing some flashy shit in order to get these type of criticals. So definitely I'm going to be working on these. I'm going to go ahead and make the builds on PC. And I think I still have my Blood one on PS4, so I'm going to be working on trying to get some clips for you guys in regard to those specific builds. And then now we'll go ahead and talk about the wonderful, the beautiful, my favorite creation in Dark Souls 3 for sure, the Artuian Warrior. All right, so a quick distinction to make about the Artuian right out of the gate is that it is a trade-centric build, which means it benefits greatly from having the Leo ring on at all times. Now, the Leo ring benefits the most from weapons that do solely physical damage because the Leo Ring does not affect elemental damage. So you would preferably have a Lothric Knight Sword, sharp infused with a high dexterity build. This is how you get the most of everything, but you should also take note that the sharp damage on riposte or criticals in general is subpar to the Chaos infusion. So you potentially could choose Chaos over pure physical if you're only looking at the critical damage alone, which I would recommend you do not do this and you go with the physical plus Leo setup and you just use the Hornet Ring too. You lose a little bit of critical damage, but you're going to get more counter hits than you are going to get backstabs and criticals in general, just generally speaking. So now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about the best attack that the Artuian has besides the R2. Because the R2 is really good, but it's not the best at catching people off guard per se once they know what's going to happen. So once I work somebody over with the R2s, sometimes they end up in this very passive and defensive stance where they're really looking close at everything that I do, and I need to catch them off guard. So my number one attack that I turn to when I have to hit somebody in this specific position is the first frame running R1. And this is two-handed. It's that overhead vertical swing down. And usually a lot of people don't like this attack, myself included. But I had found that if you try to do it first frame, while you're doing this kind of finagling of your spacing that I do, kind of like sprint for a very short duration to the left backwards and to the right backwards, and sometimes you're just running backwards, trying to confuse your opponent's spacing, you in turn quickly turn around and sprint for just the very first frame that your sprint will start and do the running R1, and the range that it has and the speed in which it can come out can be very deceptive, and that is the attack that I hit people with the most besides the R2s. So that's one of those attacks that you need to get good at trying to do those first frame running attacks with, and you will definitely get a lot of mileage out of that. So one thing that I did forget to mention was the secondary effect of the Hornet Ring and why it's a staple ring for the build. Other than obviously inflicting more critical damage, you're going to change the critical animation, and also it changes the time that you spend on the ground. So it increases the time your opponent is knocked down, allowing the Wake Up R2 to be charged more. So it's just going to give you more time to charge the R2 or to move towards them or whatever you plan to do. So it's definitely worth having on the build just for that reason alone. But the added critical damage definitely helps out. Alright, so there's some alternative setups to the Artuian, so you don't have to just use the Lothric Knight Sword. There's one other straight sword in the game that also has the same moveset as the Lothric Knight straight sword, and that is the short sword, and it retains the same properties as well. The one-handed R2s do not combo, but the two-handed R2s do combo. Now, for every other straight sword in the game that is not the Lothric straight sword or the short sword, they all have the same movesets as well, and they do the one-handed R2s are a poke into an upswing, and that does combo. So not Lothric, not short sword, one-handed R2s, tap R2s, they combo. You could do the exact same thing as the normal Artuian with a one-handed straight sword as well. So break out the Goddards, baby. They're good. I love them for that. Or use the short sword. Be an alternative Artuian. But definitely some cool setups to say the least, and you'd be surprised with what you can get away with doing only R2s, that's for sure. Other things worth mentioning, the use of force. You can see me use it in this video to get free wake up attacks off. Definitely good, try it out. You can poise cast it for some hyper armor. The L2R2 into R2 pseudo combo, definitely really good. You see me do that in this video. Just experiment with the timings and let me know how it works out for you guys. I'm going to keep working hard. You guys take it easy and have a great day. See ya.